I see it's 3 o'clock, and I'm going to call this meeting of the CU MTD to order. We'll start with the roll call.
Chaplin. Here. Cho. Here. Dial. Here. Hannon. Here. Raymer. Here. Uchtman. Here. Bauer.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Okay, we have the agenda to approve. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Raymer, second by Chaplin. Any discussion? All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We have audience participation. Dr. Farron. Click the microphone button. Be on the right side. There you go.
Great, thank you. Since the MTD Marks Miller incident a previous time, I had never heard too much on this topic at board meetings, and I assume for legal reasons. Now that this issue has been pretty much settled, I had a couple of thoughts or questions. And my first question would be, has anything changed in the training of new or current operators based on this event? And part two of that, has the policy or approach related to handling of drivers who had complaints or discipline complaints changed? Because I did note that the driver in question had recently been fired, according to the reports in the paper.
Well, unfortunately, the case is still active, and I know it appears as though it's resolved. It's not yet at this point, and so I am going to decline to answer those questions right now. However, when things are resolved, I would be happy to answer your questions. But right now, because it's still an ongoing case where the attorneys have all agreed that we're better off not responding to questions right now.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah, I'd appreciate hearing those topics
Certainly.
First when the dust, if you will, settles on this question.
Okay.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you want to ask a question?
Carl, is the gag order essentially still in effect or not? Or do we know that?
Well, that's a question I don't know the answer to. I don't know if you do, Jennifer. It's the one on the right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually don't know if the gag order is still in place, but I think when we're saying it's still pending, the period for appeal is still not expired. Is that correct?
Right, and so yeah, so our attorneys have agreed that the no comment period is still in existence, but I don't know that it's a direct result of the gag order per se, so much as it is the entirety of the case is not resolved, and so we're just not responding right now.
Okay. Yeah, more direction from our attorney probably than a legal gag order. Okay. Thank you. We have the approval of the minutes from August 31st, 2016, starting on page 1. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Uchtman, second by Dial. Any discussion? Margaret, did you find any mistakes? Wow, great. Good job, Beth. All in favor of approving the minutes, please vote aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We have some communications on 4 and 5. Did you want to comment about these, Carl?
I think they're self-explanatory, so hopefully you've had a chance to read through them. They're short.
Mm-hmm. Basically, MTD came to the rescue with early dismissals in the heat and so on. We were able to adjust and provide good service. So I congratulate the staff and drivers for doing that. Okay, we have managing director reports. Carl?
Okay, the August ridership was 914,406, and that is 7.44% above August of last year. And our monthly operating revenue was 558,043 versus 602,976 last year. As I mentioned in the notes, that primarily is due to a accounting adjustment to the accrual process for the university revenue primarily. So they're trying. Jolene is trying to get into a pattern of doing this annually, but she did not do it last year. She did it 2 years ago, and so this year is trying to catch up and rebalance that essentially. So it's not actually changing the number or the amount of revenue. We know what the revenue is going to be from the university contract totally by the end of the year. It's just how it's being distributed month by month throughout the year from a budgeting perspective. The monthly expenses, so Margaret did not find an error in anything that Beth did, but she did, however, find an error in my report, and maybe some of the rest of you did too, and that was that the operating expenses were actually above what they were last year, not below. So in that sentence below the graphs, both of those should be above. Not below. As far as the overall budget, the year-to-date operating revenue is $78,753 above budget, and the operating expenses are $904,400 under budget. And then the only other thing that I want to point out is that on Election Day, November 8th, we are going to have a fare-free day to help remove barriers to getting to the polling places and to help encourage people to vote. We have received some requests from the public for doing that, and I thought that was a good idea, and the overall potential loss of revenue to us is very, very small, since the vast majority of our revenue comes in through prepaid fares, not cash at the door fares, and so I thought it was worthwhile to do that.
Is this the first time?
This is the first time we've done that.
Carl, I had a question on page 7 about the newest iteration of automatic signal control component. Is this turn signals or about the CAD, AVL provider, etc.?
Okay, I'm sorry. I probably could have done a better job explaining that. So what I mean by sign control, that's actually the head sign or destination sign on the front of the bus, not a stop light signal. And so prior to this, when a route reached an endpoint, the bus driver would have to reach up and key in the new sign into a keypad, and depending on the height of the operator, just as a for instance, if I were driving the bus, I have to actually unbuckle the seat belt, completely stand up. So I've got to park the bus, stand up,
get a footstool,
input it. Now, Linda, let's not exaggerate. And input the sign. Okay. Then sit down, rebuckle, put it into drive, and then I can go. Brian can just sit there, and without even having to fully stretch his arm, he can input a new sign. So there's a variety of ability for people to do that. But either way, a manual input is something that a driver has to do. We don't want them to do it while they're actually driving, and so it slows the system down. And so what we've done is connected the sign control to our CAD AVL operations, and so it's triggered with a GPS location. So we track the buses, we know when it gets to a predefined point, we send a signal to the sign control, and it automatically changes the destination sign. So it's hands-free for the driver. They don't have to think about it. It's one less thing that the driver has to handle and deal with, and it doesn't slow the system down. So it's an improvement on system efficiency.
And so, Carl, those points which you're going to change the signs at, those are going to happen. You're not going to wait to get to the stop where the change needs to be made to send a signal.
No, it actually happens right after the stop, prior to that,
Okay.
so that at that stop, the passenger would see it coming in as, just as a, for instance, they would see it coming in as a, if they're on the northern end of the yellow, they would see it as a yellow south, because they're going to, once they get on, the bus is going to go south, rather than it arriving as a yellow north and confusing the passenger. I will say that this is, it's much easier for the drivers. It is a complicated additional database that our planning department has to manage, and so we are occasionally running into little hiccups here and there. And Jermaine, that question is one that can occasionally crop up. I think that we've got, if not all of them, certainly the vast majority of them caught and corrected, but we may still occasionally see that, and as soon as somebody informs us of that, then we get right on it.
Can I ask a question? Going back to the free fares on election day, is there some plan to publicize this in advance?
Certainly. Jan is not here today. She's out of town at a training seminar, but I think she'll be able to, at the next board meeting, the October board meeting, she'll be able to lay out to you what the marketing plan is for that. She's been aware of it for several months and has been putting together the pieces for that.
Okay. Do you have more to report?
I do not. I can answer any questions that you have
Okay.
through page 46.
Other questions about the managing director's report? Okay, let's move on to board committees. Don, is there administration to report?
I'll just report that Bruce and I have been working with Carl to identify peer transit institutions that will be helpful to us when we look at salary levels as we renegotiate his contract for next year.
Okay, thank you. Brad, facilities? I'm sorry, Matt?
We met for our quarterly meeting. Nothing really new to report. We toured the garage expansion, and everything seems to be being finished up. So it'll be great when that gets ready before the winter, hopefully, right?
Thank you.
If I can just tag on that, I can't remember if I put this in the board report or not, or if we landed on the day right after I finished it. October 11th, we are going to have a media event for, excuse me, the launch of the new buses, the 2016 buses. And a unique aspect of that, I've mentioned before that we have a new hybrid system in these buses, and part of that hybrid system is manufactured here locally in Champaign-Urbana. So in 45 years of existence, this is the first time that the transit district has purchased buses, or for that matter, anyone in the country has purchased buses that has had a component that has been built in Champaign-Urbana. So that's kind of cool and significant. And so we have a media event that we're working with the local firm Clifford Jacobs just have a press event and announce that. We'll be doing that in the new garage, and so if you want to take an opportunity, the rest of the board that hasn't seen the construction and the status of that, you're welcome to attend. We will, yeah, we'll let you know.
That is great. Thank you. Margaret, service delivery? Okay. So the first action item is to authorize execution of the Downstate Operating Assistant Grant Agreement. And if you haven't kept track, the state of Illinois did have a budget problem and was late getting out some of their contracts.
Yeah, and not only the budget problem, but in addition to that, I've mentioned to you the new Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, GATA, G-A-T-A. So that's a new state act that it essentially completely overhauls every grant program in the state, having nothing to do with transit, although transit is one of them, but it's every single grant program in the state. And the division of IDOT that we work with didn't get their paperwork completed for the new overhaul until just a few weeks ago. And so that was as much the delay as the budget problems, because they had to rewrite all the agreements. We have all kinds of new reporting that we're required to do under this act. The state is doing everything within their power to make us bureaucrats and disable our ability to offer a higher level of customer service and better government. They very much want us to function the way they do. So we're fighting that and pushing back against that, because we think it's important to provide good customer service and not just be pencil pushers. But it looks like we're going to have to do both. So we're in the process of trying to figure out all of that.
Thanks. Don, did you have a question?
I would move approval. I would move approval of resolution number 2016-5, appearing on page 48, a resolution authorizing execution and amendment of the Downstate Operating Assistant Grant Agreement.
Second.
Motion by Uchtman, second by Raymer. I do have a question. It says execution and amendment. Are we amending something?
This is the standard language of the resolution that they gave us to pass.
All right.
So I don't know that I'm going to be able to tell you why it says that. This is not an amended agreement. This is the original agreement for this fiscal year. But I think that if they do amend it, then this also authorizes the amendment. That would be my guess.
Okay. Any further questions? Oh, section 1. Okay.
It's actually in section 2.
I guess I could have read it. This authorizes me and or Brad and Carl or Brian to provide information for the grant and to sign. So, any other questions?
I guess just for the informational purposes, can you highlight the importance of this Downstate Operating Assistant Grant?
Yes, it is critically important. This is the major source of revenue that the district has. The state contract is what pays for 65% of our eligible expenses. And so this year, that's about $29 million.
Okay. Any more questions? Seeing none, excuse me, all in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Very good. We have the DRES contract, and this is with the university, is that correct?
It's with a specific division of the university, yes. So we have the overall contract with the university, and as a part of that larger contract, we have carved out some storage space in our facility to allow the Department of Rehabilitation and Education Services to park their vehicles there. And since they're parking there, they have asked us if we would be willing to do maintenance on those vehicles as well. So this is the maintenance agreement for that, and we're certainly willing to do that for them. They're good partners for us. They provide a very important service on campus to the disabled student community, and we have a priority. Within the agreement, we have a priority mix that defines that our vehicles are top priority for the maintenance department, and C-carts is a second priority, and then DRES is a third priority. And then we actually have some other folks that we do maintenance for, but they're lower down on that list.
How do our prices compare to market?
Well, I guess I would answer that a couple ways. The total cost would be higher, most likely, but these are eligible transportation expenses, and therefore they are eligible for state reimbursement. So they get a 65% discount on that overall cost, and so we're charging them 35% of the fully allocated cost. So that's very advantageous for them. But then above and beyond that, they get a set of mechanics who are transit oriented and only work on buses and only work in transit, and that's all they do, and they do a great job. So they have a very dedicated group of maintenance personnel by using ours.
I think this is another good example of how MTD partners with other transportation entities for economies of scale and expertise, and provides value. Plus, with the resources of the university and the students and all that, we can provide better transportation to the rest of the community because we have a critical mass. So I think that works out pretty well. Thank you, university people. Okay, next is Brad.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of this intergovernmental agreement between the CU Mass Transit District and the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, listed on pages 50 through 55 of our board packet.
Motion by Uchtman, second by... Motion by Dial, second by... Chaplin. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay.
It isn't clear to me from reading through this agreement as to whether they're paying everything or whether there's some monetary burden on us besides the fact that they get a corner of our garage.
Well, they pay a rental rate for that parking as a part of the larger contract with the university. Number one, and then number two, the district doesn't have any local funds in the cost of the maintenance. They are accessing our state grant, and so they get that 65% for the eligible expenses. But then the 35% is paid for by DRES or the university. Okay. So 100% of the cost, labor, parts, everything is covered by either the state grant or DRES, and the district doesn't have any cost in it. We have resources in it, but we get reimbursed for the cost of those resources.
Thank you. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we now go to a closed session. And do I have a motion for that?
Madam Chair, I move that the board move to closed session pursuant to 5 Illinois Compiled Statute 120/2C11 to consider litigation that is pending against, affecting, or on the behalf of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District, and so I move.
Motion by Dial, second by...
Yeah, Brad, did you just read one of them? And can you also mention for the public that we won't do there will be no action items
No
after?
further business. Yeah.
Right.
And additionally, we will be discussing, as a part of that closed session, discussing purchase or lease of real property for use by the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Uchtman. No discussion, is there? Okay. This is a roll call. I did remember. Okay, and we will not have any business except to state the next meeting. So thank you for coming, audience, and we'll go into closed session.
Chaplin. Yes. Cho. Dial.
Yes.
Hannon. Yes. Raymer. Yes. Uchtman.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes. Get some coffee.
Yeah, I was just like, but there's nothing I can do about it. So now that she's done that, let me explain real quick. We started last month recording the board meetings, and so we have a recording that we'll be able to post on the website.
Cool.
And that's why she's running back and forth, because we don't want to include the closed sessions
Yes.
on those recordings. They have not begun being posted on the website yet, because we haven't completed the work on the website to embed a player and that kind of thing. But when that's done, we'll have, starting in August of 2016, all the board meetings available for audio playback.
Great. That's good. Transparent. Okay, we're in an open session now, and our next meeting is October 26th at 3 p.m. here in Illinois Terminal, and we will have more conversation. Would that be in an open session or closed session about properties?
Relative to the information I'll be bringing back to you, I think we want to do that in closed.
Okay. All right, very good. Brad?
I'll move for adjournment.
Motion by Dial, second by Chaplin. Anyone, any discussion? No. All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.